Tropical storm Ophelia, our latest tropical cyclone, and this is affecting the United States. You can see it there on this infrared satellite. It looks like it's right on the coast. It's actually about, I think, 60 miles or so off the North Carolina coast, and it is strengthening at the current time. I'm recording this about 6 p.m. Eastern time, and you can see also another perspective will show that also the center. This is the storm down here. This is the North Carolina coast. You're getting hammered across the Outer Banks and areas now in southern North Carolina. And the center of the storm before was totally exposed out here. Now it's underneath the thunderstorm. So it's possible Ophelia could become a hurricane. It wasn't expected to, but it may become a minimal hurricane before it makes landfall. And that's going to happen by about midnight tonight. So if you're in these areas here, get ready because you're going to get some of the worst conditions. And the Hurricane Center's forecast path, you can see it right here. About midnight is when it comes into the coast around Morehead City and Ocracoke Island. So it's going to be a rough night down there. We'll see some of the most power outages from this. And then it's going to move inland Saturday and weaken rather quickly as it moves into Virginia. So this is going to affect much of the eastern seaboard. And here's a future tracker starting here about 8 o'clock with the storm coming into the coast. And I'll start it again here. And then we'll move forward. So the future tracker shows the storm moving into North Carolina. Now this is about 8 a.m. on Saturday. It is, not far from Raleigh, North Carolina. And then during Saturday, it moves right into Virginia and just to the west, it looks like, of D.C. So you'll have problems there in D.C. as well. Although by Sunday morning, it'll just be a remnant low. It will be weakening very quickly by that point. So what we need to know here, well, first the rainfall. And this is courtesy of our friends here at the Washington Post. And the graphics here, this is from Weatherbell, which we use frequently here. And this shows the rainfall forecast real well. And look at this rainfall from the Carolinas all the way up through New England. The heaviest will be down North Carolina, Southern Virginia. But this vast area of 2 inches plus rain. So if you're driving on I-95 on Saturday, well, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it because you're going to be seeing flooding. It's going to be, the heaviest stuff will be localized, but just be very wary of that. As you can obviously have a lot of problems if you encounter those flooded roads. As we take a look at the wind gusts, the winds with Ophelia, I'm going to start this here about midnight. By midnight, you can see, you're getting hammered down there in North Carolina and southern Virginia here. The wind gusts in that bright green are tropical storm force and getting up even near hurricane force in some of those bright orange areas. So I'll advance this starting at midnight and then going through Saturday. You'll see gusty winds along the coastline all day long Saturday from Virginia to New York. And then by Saturday night, the storm weakens and the winds diminish. So this is Sunday morning at 8 o'clock. And during Sunday, we'll have breezy conditions still throughout the day, but no kind of damaging wind gusts expected. Now, here's some information that you'll need to know here. First, I'll get to some of these, but first, I want to show you what we're talking about as far as the coastal flooding, because that's the most serious aspect of this. The storm surge forecast, because this is coming into the coast, if you're in Southern Virginia here in the Chesapeake Bay up to Maryland, we could see up to 4 feet of storm surge in that yellow area. Locally, maybe even near 5 feet as well. And that's going to be at the time of high tide. So you're under the gun if you're in those areas for sure. There are other areas too that you have to watch out for. This graphic I'm going to show you, this is where we have the storm surge watches and warning. That kind of dovetails that, the areas that are going to be most under the gun, but there'll also be flooding farther north of the coast. Not as serious, but there will be up to in New Jersey and New York. So you've got to keep that in mind. And we do have coastal flood warnings here in the bright green. So that's the most serious. You'll see the most serious flooding in those areas near Atlantic City, Cape May, Long Beach Island. And a coastal flood advisory in that color green there, that olive green. Less serious, but you're still going to see some flooding there. and also up to Long Island and New York. A similar situation up there as far as seeing some minor flooding at the times of high tide. So that's something that we really have to watch. Now, some other areas like Virginia Beach, you guys will be, I'm going to show you a forecast for Virginia Beach. Virginia Beach, Norfolk, that metropolitan area. If you're there, you're going to see wind gusts gusting to 65 miles per hour, possibly, and waves of heavy rain through Saturday. And that high tide, again, that's a critical time. Moderate coastal flooding possibility, indeed likely, through Saturday afternoon. Now, the high tide times at Virginia Beach, right here, you'll see about 2 a.m. Saturday morning, another one about 2:30 in the afternoon, and then the next one at 3 a.m. Sunday, I should say. So we've got at least 2, potentially 3 tide cycles, and that's when the water will be the most serious at the times of high tide. Now, there are other areas we're talking about too. This location, Yorktown, in Virginia, north of the Norfolk area, you could see major flood. The projection is for major flood happening at Yorktown on Saturday. Of course, that'll be at high tide. And your high tide times Saturday, again, about the same time, just before 4 a.m., and then at 4 p.m., and then about 5 a.m. on Sunday morning. So 2 to 3 high tide cycles there. You could see moderate to near major coastal flooding at that location, which means you don't want to be in that location at that time. Another location they're talking about is this one here by Delaware Bay at Lewes. And they're expecting moderate flooding at the time of high tide on Saturday. And that's really the Saturday afternoon one that's the most serious. And for them, you can see here the high tide times are really similar. That it's at that afternoon one, though, Saturday, that we're most worried about 3:37 p.m. And then another one about 4 a.m. Sunday morning. So these times here, you have to be aware that you could experience moderate flooding over in that area. So those are the areas we're really watching as far as the worst flooding aspects of this. So keep that in mind. Now I'm going to zoom up to show the forecast here in New York City, because there's quite a bit of things going on in New York City this weekend. And of course, you'll be feeling the effects. I'm going to start. This is a future tracker starting about 6 a.m. Saturday. Some light rain moving in when you wake up. You'll have gusty winds. And throughout the day, here's the future tracker. And you can see not a lot of very heavy rain. You're going to have waves of showers, some locally heavier amounts. But the rain amounts will be less in New York City. And then it looks like we get a bit of a break Saturday night. And then we get more waves of rain. This is Sunday at 8 a.m. We're still in it here. It's not over. So you're still going to have at least some light rain and drizzle to deal with in New York City on Sunday. I don't think there'll be a lot of heavy rain, and the winds will be less on Sunday versus Saturday. So it's just going to be a gray, gloomy kind of weekend unless you like the rain and wind around New York. And I also wanted to show you, there's, of course, the Tunnel to Towers event. I wanted to show that here. That's a really, really good cause. It's been going on, many years during the fall time. They do the walk, and it's a run and a walk, 5K run and walk. And it's going to be damp, as you can imagine. The temps will be comfortable in the 60s. So we don't want hot weather for a walk or a march for sure. But the rain is going to be there. So get the rain gear with you. Be careful running out there. I don't think there'll be much flooding happening. I don't think there'll be a lot of heavy rain. But you're going to have to deal with damp conditions and breezy conditions, but nothing serious as far as wind. So just bottom line, it's going to be wet on the Sunday, at least a little bit, as you're heading out to do that march. So that's the latest on Ophelia, and we'll have more updates coming up.